So we've looked, now we're going to listen. And you can see there our elements that we're promoting there, giving people a sense of safety, calm, and connecting. So these are three key messages to do with listen. And so whether people are approaching you, ringing you up, connecting over there, or someone within your bubble, or maybe you have approached them, it doesn't really matter. However the contact is, you're just going to have the start of this, just a generalized conversation. And then maybe people will start opening up, or maybe you will start opening up and talking about what's going on with them, what's happening for them right now, maybe what their worries and concerns are. All right, so it is really important to ask, when we're not face to face in the same room necessarily, we've got all these other cues that we can take about how someone is. Their body language, we can maybe give a context of what's going on in their lives, what they're looking like and how they're behaving. Now, we miss a lot of that when we're on the phone, obviously, and even when we're just in front of a computer screen. So it's really important to ask them, how they're doing. Be a little bit specific. A lot of us, often even when things aren't really going that well, if people say, how are you, how are things? Oh, fine, it's okay, I'm all right. And maybe they're not necessarily. Of course, some will be. They will be, but some may not be. So can I suggest that, particularly now when we're not always in the same room as people, is asking that next question. So what are you worried about now? Tell me the sort of things that you're doing, just whatever it is. So maybe they might open up and be a little bit more able to talk to you about what their needs and concerns are. It's really important for us not to assume that we know, or that we think that we know, or to assume that we think they actually need any help, because they may not, and that's okay. But it's just asking those questions to see if we can help them and support them in getting the needs and anything that they need, and talking about their concerns. And also, all this listening is going to hopefully continue to help them feel calm. And so that can be done by helping them through those decision makings, whether it is something that they need, there's a service they need to access, there's stuff that they need to do. And so they may be feeling a bit overwhelmed, they don't know where to start, it's all a bit hard. So remember, we're not doing it for them, we're not fixing it, but what we can do is help them navigate. And, is it this or is it this? Okay, is it that or is it this? Okay, is it? And just helping them go through so they can think through this process, get their thinking brain going to help them maybe start doing things that they need to do for themselves. And when people do want to talk, because we know we don't force them to when we're providing PFA, it's paramount that they are actually heard. So I'm going to talk about the 4 ways, the 4 examples that we can actively demonstrate that we are listening. And those 4 ways are acknowledge, normalize, reflect, and reassure. So acknowledging. When maybe they're telling us that maybe they're not coping, maybe they're distressed, maybe they're worried, maybe they're upset. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. It's really important to acknowledge what they're saying. Yeah, it is tough to go through something like this. If we're talking about COVID-19, it is an unprecedented situation we're living through right now. And most of us have never experienced it before. Or it could be a friend could be telling you they're in the middle of a relationship breakup and it's terrible for them and they're distraught and they're this and they're that. Well, it's really important to acknowledge, yes, I can see that it's distressing and I can see that you're distraught, because it is tough to go through something like that, whatever it is. We're not going to say, oh, there's nothing to worry about. So it's acknowledging. It's going to give them that sense of calm and that you are starting to understand what they're talking about. Normalizing. People may think that they're losing their mind at the moment with their worries and their concerns, and they're constantly maybe feeling worried and upset and stressed about what's happening at the moment. So reminding them that it's okay. It's okay to be worried, concerned. That's perfectly normal right now in this situation. So things like that are really helpful, just to help them maybe go, oh gosh, I'm not the only one that this is happening to. Reflect. One of the this is the third out of the fourth way of active listening. So what I'm talking about with reflecting is not just repeating back like a parrot. It's clarifying, paraphrasing. There's many words that we can say to describe this. Because when people do want to tell us what's happening with them, what their situation is, it's paramount that we do hear what they're saying and not what we think they've said or we think they mean. So there are some suggestions that you can say. It sounds like from what you've said, your worry is this. So you're just telling them and ensuring that they know that you've heard, and you're listening and you're hearing the same message. Because some people do sort of think out loud, and they could be talking to you and you say, okay, so what you're saying is this, and they might go, oh no, that's not what I meant at all, and then clarify it again. So it is really good to be clear, because then when you both are at the same page of understanding, then when you understand exactly what their worries and concerns are or needs, then you can start continuing to provide the emotional and practical support. Reassure. Now, this is a tricky one, because we don't want to just do that blanket, oh, it'll be fine, you'll be fine, we'll be fine, it's going to be okay, because we don't know that to be true. So what I would encourage you in things that you say to be reassuring is that making sure that you say stuff that you do know to be true. So around COVID-19, we can say that there are people here to support you, that we are all doing our bit to minimize the impact of the virus. Depending on the circumstances and the relationship, you are doing a great job in keeping your family and yourself safe. So all those sorts of things will be helpful, as opposed to just saying, you'll be fine, because we just don't know that. And it is very contextual as well, as you can imagine. So part of this, another element, self-help, we can also do this within our listening activity and active listening and all our questioning. So getting people to start doing stuff for themselves, planning for themselves, because remember, people can feel a little bit overwhelmed and it's a bit too hard. So that last bullet point, would it be helpful to talk through a plan or a process or work out what you need in the next hour or couple of days, next week, whatever it is? But also, one really important thing is to remind them and talk about things about what do you do that you enjoy doing. Are you still able to do them? Are you still doing them? If not, could you keep doing them? Do you need to do them differently? All this sort of questioning, because when things are stressful, when people are overwhelmed, doing stuff that we love to do just seems to just go by the by. But it's so important for people, for all of us, to continue to do the things that we enjoy, albeit differently and within our bubbles and all that sort of stuff, because it's like medicine to cortisol. Now, do you remember earlier on when I talked about that stress hormone cortisol and the impact of that, and it gives us sort of fuzzy brain and it's really hard to think things through? Well, doing stuff that we love gives us this positiveness, these positive endorphins. And it's like we're giving that cortisol. It's like an antidote. It's a medicine. So it can sometimes get those cortisol levels to increase and therefore might get our thinking brains back into gear a little bit. So providing those four elements, giving people a sense of safety, calm, connected and self-help, then we can also promote hope. And these are some of the things that I've talked about before. Doing those things that they love to do, singing and dancing, doesn't silly as they want to be, controlling what they can control. And remember, I said, please try not to give them that false hope. All right, just talking and reassuring them and telling them only things that you know to be true. We don't normally give people a don't and a do list or a script, because there is no script for PFA. We just want you to be genuine, to use your own words and use your own language, because otherwise it just doesn't work. But there are a couple of suggestions that we do have. Please don't say that you understand what they're going through, because you don't. We don't. We may be able to empathize. We may have gone through a similar event, but we still don't understand what they are going through. So maybe think about a different way of saying it. For example, I understand that these are difficult times and that you're feeling anxious or concerned or worried, and that's okay. We often say, with the genuine best will in the world, everything will be, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's going to be okay. I'm sure you'll be fine. But we don't always know that to be true. So maybe a way that you can say that. So here's an example of the COVID-19 example. I'm doing what I can to help in this difficult situation. You're doing your part too, or doing what you can. We're going to be in this together to help to get through this. Whatever those words are. So here's a summary of all the communication tips around that active listening that we were speaking to. A couple of extra ones I want to add in. Silence is okay. When it comes to PFA, it's fine. It's a bit tricky over the phone. Sometimes it is even a bit tricky through the internet, because you wonder where they've gone. Maybe you might need to articulate that you're just having a couple of minutes just to give people a wee break, time to have a moment. It's okay from a PFA perspective not to have the answer. You can tell them, I don't know what to say to you right now. I don't have an answer for you right now. But just being there, listening and supporting them will be amazing. The last 2 bullet points, keep it simple. Keep your messages clear, because remember that adrenaline, it's like you're explaining something to them and it's bouncing off their head. It's not going to get in there, not because they're being annoying, not because they're stupid, because that adrenaline stress hormone is just about not allowing it to process and get in there. So you're going to have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat your message. And if you're able to email them or link them to somewhere where it's also in writing, that will be really helpful in getting them to get that message through. So we've spent quite a bit of time on listen. So now I'm just going to describe the last action principle, link. That's generally and usually the most practical of all the action principles. So addressing the basic needs, and could be linking them through to other services that may be there, maybe getting stuff delivered, maybe you're able to go and do that within your bubble and keeping it local. Whatever services and things are out there, maybe you're able to direct them into the right direction. Could be WINZ, could be other things, other agencies that they need to go through. Giving information. It just please needs to be accurate, official. There is so much misinformation and disinformation out there, and there's also so much of it. We just seem to be bombarded with communication, and that in itself is just so overwhelming. It just gets too much. And so we may even consider backing away and minimizing our exposure to all of this stuff, because it's everywhere we look. There is information, and it's statistics, and it's numbers, and it's deaths, and it's this, and it does just get overwhelming. So you might like to think or encourage people to minimize seeing all this stuff or going to this stuff, whether they might just choose to watch the news just once a day instead of having it on all day. Making sure that they do go to the official website, Unite Against COVID-19. If they don't have access to the internet, there's that free helpline. And as I said, limiting that exposure. And connecting, linking them to whoever, seeing how they can phone, get some internet access or something so that they can connect with whoever they need to connect with. Because in the early days, the social distancing, this is the words that we were using. We're trying not to use those words anymore because of the connotation. Social distancing means social isolation, and it doesn't. And it's right now, when things are hard and uncertain and worrying, that this is the paramount time that we need to be connected, albeit differently, to whoever we need to be connected to. So it's physical distancing. not social distancing. And last but by no means least, our well-being. It is so important when you're providing PFA that you are well and strong enough to be able to do that, but also reminding everyone in this situation around COVID-19 that we do need to continue to feel good, function well, and connect with others, which is the definition of well-being. Because if you don't connect with others and you're feeling very isolated, you're not going to function very well or feel good. And we want to turn that around. And so it's also just a reminder that we do have another webinar, which really looks much more closely in much more detail and a lot of examples on how we can feel good, function well, and connect with others. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this webinar. Ka kite anō.